Hey everybody, welcome back to Soul School. Now it's about that time to get into a little bit of a chronicle. And I've decided that I'm going to get into just different types of artists on a chronicle tip. And when I say chronicle, that means that these cats are so great that at some point in time, within the next couple of weeks or a month, I'm going to come right back to them. And the first cat that I decided to chronicle is the one and only Quincy Jones. Quincy is one of these dudes that's so insanely bad. Bad means good, but insanely bad that you really can't get him in 8 or 9 episodes. So I'm going to have to chronicle him. It's real simple. I'm going to have to chronicle him. And when you start thinking about his solo stuff, and I'm not going to even talk about right now at this point who he has produced, because we all know, and not just Michael Jackson, Donna Summer, James Ingram, you name them, he's produced them, the Brothers Johnson, etc., etc., etc. But if we're going to even talk about Quincy Jones, I'll even back off the soundtracks, like the Anderson tapes, the Pawnbroker, In the Heat of the Night, Ironside, the show that featured Raymond Burr, Perry Mason. We won't even talk about that. Let's talk about his albums. Quincy Jones's albums. When you think about That's How I Feel About Jazz, and then him transitioning, Quincy's got a brand new bag in 66 or whatever it may be. When he got to like 1969, that's when he kind of started to really, really blow my mind. Not that the other stuff wasn't really, really cool, but when you think about 1969, the first album in the summer of 69 that really started to get people to going in the record shops and buying albums was this album by this bald-head dude named Isaac Hayes. It was called Hot Butter Soul, and it came out like around either May or June of 1969. Only had 4 songs on it, but it was a mind blower. By the time I get to Phoenix, Walk On By, which was originally done by Burt Bacharach on Dionne Warwick, and then he just totally flipped it and came up with a whole nother arrangement on it. Well, when you start to think about late 1969, which is December of 69, now mind you, Diana Ross Presents the Jackson 5 that came out with I Want You Back. The album had came out in December 69. The 45 came out in October 69. By the time we get to January, February, here comes ABC, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, The Beatles, Let It Be, Sign, Seal, Deliver. A couple of months later, in April of 1970, the 5 Stairsteps had Ooh Child. In other words, there was a lot of great music that was going on. Quincy Jones, in late December of 1969, came out with this album called Walking in Space. And it featured Killer Joe, Walking in Space, Oh Happy Day, etc., etc. When I think about how different that album was from anything that had been ever put out, it's just really, really a mind blower where that cat's mind was at that time. The different people that he would have playing on his stuff, Grady Tate, I'm trying to think who was the bass player at that time, who was playing with Gary King, just different people like that. Valerie Simpson from Ashford and Simpson, who was totally unknown at the time. Hubert Laws, flute player, to this day still the baddest flute player that has ever walked this planet. All the different killer musicians that he had and singers that he actually had on that album, and then to come out with the product like that, it was actually mind-blowing. And I'm talking about Quincy Jones's albums at this particular time, not any of the other stuff that I was talking about earlier, just his albums. Gullah Matari would follow in 1970, also same kind of musicians. 1971-72, he had this album called Smackwater Jack, which featured music from the Anderson tapes, the original Bill Cosby show, Ironside, the show with Raymond Burr, Perry Mason, or whatever that came on television back then. His killer remake of What's Going On. Then after that, he would come out with You Got It Bad Girl, which was my favorite song on Stevie Wonder's Talking Book LP. Quincy Jones even tries to sing on it. Quincy Jones is not a singer, but much like Roy Ayers, he had his way of getting his point across to all of us. And when you add George Duke's keyboard solo on You Got It Bad Girl from 1973, you have an absolute masterpiece. You get a chance, go and Google that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, and the late George Duke is actually playing on that. And on that same album with You Got It Bad Girl is the theme from Sanford & Son, the long version of Sanford & Son. And Quincy Jones's father had just passed away, and so his mind was just at work, just to keep his mind from going to just different areas of sadness. So he put together Sanford & Son on that album, which I just thought about in 15 minutes. Features, who is it? Ernie Watts on horns and just different people like that. And the long version of that is real funky. You think what you heard on TV is cool. The long version on You Got It Bad Girl is real bad. Then the next, later that year, not even the next year, late 1973, Body Heat. That single went number one. I think the album went number one if I remember right, but all these just different great people, Leon Ware, James Gatson, Minnie Riperton. I mean, Minnie Riperton wasn't really known. She had been around with Rotary Connection and stuff like that, and I think she had an album called Introducing Minnie Riperton, but she wasn't really there yet. But just the different people that Chuck Rainey, great bass player Chuck Rainey, all the different people that he would have playing on that Body Heat album, that was like a landmark transition album for Quincy Jones. Then after that was Mellow Madness. Dave Grusin, who would produce a lot of Blue Note stuff and CTI, and he would also do television as well, is playing on that album. Hubert Laws, the Brothers Johnson. Matter of fact, that was the first album that the Brothers Johnson had ever played on with Quincy Jones, which featured this song called Is It Love That We're Missing, Trying to Find Out About You, etc., etc. Then after that, I believe he came out with Sounds, which featured an unknown Luther Vandross at that time. I'm trying to remember this right because I'm just going off the top of my head, no cue cards. Luther Vandross, I'm Gonna Miss You in the Morning. Totally unknown. Nobody knew who Luther Vandross was except for people in the business that he was singing background for. And this is like 1978, I believe, like early 1978, before he would work with Luther on The Wiz. Ashford and Simpson, Shaka Khan, What Makes You Feel Like Doing Stuff Like That. Then after that, I'm trying to remember, I think there was an album called I Heard That, and then The Dude, another mind-blowing LP, Razzmatazz, Alno Carrera, The Dude. And tell you how cold The Dude was, he had Michael Jackson singing background. And a lot of people don't know that Michael Jackson sang background on the track along with James Ingram, Patty Austin, all these just great people. But when I think of, and then just Quincy was a cold dude. He's a dude that I like really, really hero worship. I mean, I really, really worship this dude. This dude was bad. And his whole thing, when he came back 9-10 years later, 1990, with the Back on the Block LP, full circle. I think Sarah Vaughan's last work that she had ever done on the planet was done on that album with Take 6, El DeBarge, Barry White, Ian Prince, Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, George Benson. And tell you how deep Quincy Jones's mind was. He was trying to get Roger Troutman to play the guitar and do the talk box on Secret Garden. A lot of people don't know that. He tried to get Roger Troutman to come back from Germany. I was talking to Roger about this 3 months before he had passed away, unfortunately. And Quincy was actually trying to get Roger to come back to do that song. He couldn't work it out. He tried to get Michael Jackson to do the track, and for whatever reason, Michael Jackson didn't do the track. But if you listen to the song, El DeBarge, Al B. Sure is singing his vibrato much like Michael Jackson. He wanted Michael Jackson to lead off the song, going to El DeBarge, James Ingram, and then Barry White be the father figure. But it still worked out to be a masterpiece. But to tell you how this dude minds work, and even the title track from that LP, Back on the Block, Big Daddy Kane, Ice-T, Melly Mel from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I mean, this dude has been the master of putting people together ever since I've been a small boy and before I probably was even born. And even, I think the greatest tribute, real quick before I get into some Quincy Jones music, because I let this conversation go for a little while, but this is very important that you know this stuff. Antonio L.A. Reid from the production duo of L.A. and Babyface, and I think he's the president over at CBS Def Jam Records or whatever it may be. He's a big wheel in the industry, to make a long story short. I heard L.A. Reid being asked one time, when are you going to put out an album? And he said, man, he was talking to Donnie Simpson, a video saw on BET. He said whenever Quincy Jones stopped making records, and Babyface, Donnie Simpson, and him all started laughing, and he was dead serious, and he just said that there's no more room for that kind of stuff. There's no more room, and I think that was the greatest way that anybody can pay tribute to Quincy Jones. Let's get to some music from Quincy Jones, and I'll be back with a final thought. Just very excited talking about it.